Ooh, look at this bright yellow. What's a special occasion today, RoboKnob? Well, it's not every day I get to review a game made by the guy whose content is half the reason why I even started a YouTube channel, so I figured this might be the perfect occasion to just straight up rip off his entire shtick. Video format and even tiny hat, which is going to be a problem since fast editing and background music is how I cover for my lack of talent. But whatever, here we have Starstruck Vagabond, which is either a game made by internet personality band Yahtzee Croshaw or the title of a posthumous David Bowie album, and much like Bowie himself, this game sounds nice, looks cool, and its gameplay is pretty dead. But let's go in order. We create an alter ego and name him, possibly with the most lifeless and boring name we can think of, and after a brief tutorial section, our spaceship malfunctions while we are in cryosleep, leaving us stranded in space for over 2000 years. But in what I would describe as a sensible remake of the Alien 3 prologue, we are still alive, and we are not carrying the infant queen of an extraterrestrial species in our chest. If that reference to an early 90s movie made you feel old, wait to see the character trait selection. We can pick a personality for the protagonist amongst 9 choices. You've got the boring hero, the cool hero, and 6 different variants of depressed misanthrope. But every one of them is presented as a popular media character, and by popular I mean none of them was created in the last 3 decades. So this is going to be a nice reminder of how time is passing and we're all gonna die. But I honestly think even the protagonist is pretty old themselves. That would explain why they walk so atrociously slow. I half expected this to be explained as muscle atrophy caused by all those years in cryogenic sleep, but that never happened, so I guess in the future, Western lazy lifestyle degraded to the point that whenever someone stands up every 29 hours, they have the same agility of a stilt walker. But I digress. We wake up and our alien lawyer advises us to get a new haircut, which I promptly refuse to do because the Big Lebowski vibes I got from my man Seamus were just too strong. Then we get our brand new spaceship and we're back to our old job, delivering cargo across the stars. I'm sorry, did I say brand new? I meant old piece of junk that can't spend 5 seconds without something breaking up. Yeah, in the style of what Yahtzee describes as post-dead gameplay, Starstruck Vagabond's gameplay mainly revolves around keeping our spaceship in decent shape, clean the filters, fix the engine, remove the space roots from the hull. It's definitely an acquired taste. But that's the kind of repetitive loop that gets kind of addicting in a wind down and forget about work kind of way. That feeling lasts for about 5 hours when you start wondering if there's ever going to be any kind of evolution, and spoiler alert, there isn't. Even getting weapons in the final act rather than being an exciting addition just means you have to tap the spacebar every once in a while. It's doubly concerning because as an European, getting a gun should feel incredibly exciting, but instead I had the same emotionless reaction of an American. It doesn't help that even the planets look all the same. If it's a town, it's a randomly generated series of squares, and if it's uninhibited, it's a barren wasteland with a few stones and bananas scattered around. All that changes is the color palette, unless we get really spicy and make the air unbreathable, so that you need to use the tiniest oxygen tank ever devised in the history of space travel. And that's the point where the aforementioned slow walking speed really starts grinding my gears, because it's one thing trying to find a bar on planet Splorg, and it's another to waddle around for a minute from one empty square to the other at the same painstaking pace of a cashier scanning products through the checkout. Yet the main reason why this felt like a drag is, ironically, the well-written story and the fact that I just wanted to progress through it. I came in with the expectation that Yahtzee would write very fun dialogues, but I wasn't expecting the ending to give me flashbacks to one of the most depressing moments from the ending of Nier Replicant. And no, that's not a spoiler. Anyone who has played Nier Replicant knows that this description barely narrows down to any particular scene. The way the story is structured is very reminiscent of Death Stranding of all things. You receive a main objective and so you tackle jobs that will get you closer and closer to your destination, but sometimes you'll be told to adventure at your own leisure, waiting for your lawyer to contact you. But what the game actually means is do some random stuff, including crashing against asteroids, until you randomly find one of the available side characters. But that sense of randomness was quite appealing though. Nothing screams immersion like finding other people who are on their own journey. There was the time traveler who is trying to kill baby Hitler, then the guy who thinks he's in the afterlife, and then the most incompetent cop in the galaxy, or just cop for short. And they all had some very funny dialogues to boot, yet that didn't stop them from having some extra pathos in the more serious moments. However serious you can call a giant teddy bear questioning about the end of the universe. The glaring exception was the manic anime girl that was simply there to check any anime stereotype imaginable, which is fine since it was clearly intentional. I just wish the game went even harder on the parody. Make her turn into a giant pink Mechagodzilla and have her shoot anime princesses from her mouth who are actually 14,000 years old dragons, but instead she just kept threatening to go into the great lolly beyond if we didn't reciprocate her love for us. You might say she was love-struck. That was low even from my standards. But teenage angst aside, this is the element that urges me to recommend Starstruck Vagabond. As I said, these characters are quite memorable, and they all have their own dedicated side story you need to complete before they forcibly join your crew. I say forcibly because you don't really have a say in the matter. Clearly, Simus Rafanidos is just that goddamn charismatic. But if you dreamt of managing your very own space crew, you might need to dream a bit longer, cause once they join your team, they just become glorified pixel art paperweight, completely useless until the end of the game. You can see them strolling around, waiting for you to feed them or take them out for drinks, and even when the entire ship is falling apart, they let Best complain that you're not putting enough of an effort, while they wait to die from asphyxiation. Well, if that's how you ungrateful pricks are going to act, I hope you enjoy eating bananas mixed with rocks for the rest of your stay here. But what this really highlights is how the narrative feels divorced from the gameplay loop. Death Stranding used deliveries as part of its story, but in Starstruck Vagabond the deliveries are parallel to the critical path. The only thing stopping you from beelining to the end credits is the fact that some star systems are dealing with space COVID or space racism and will only allow essential workers to get through, which means that you just need to get jobs that will get you inside those areas. But that's the kind of excessive padding that makes me wish I could just use my crew as hostages and threaten to execute them if they don't let me through. It's not like they were doing anything useful for me anyway, the goddamn freeloaders. Okay, maybe I'm being too harsh with them, they still carry some neat perks. There's this little celebratory sting playing when they join you, and like every good old-fashioned marriage, they carry a dowry that comes in the form of a permanent bonus. Although they could definitely use some balancing. If like me you first get the invisible guy with equally invisible gun and invisible self-esteem, you won't need to worry about fuel management anymore. The constant stream of combustible I got from his ability not only made searching for fuel irrelevant, but was probably enough for me to rename my ship into Space Saudi Arabia. It fits really. Much like the one on Earth, it carries the most petrol, it's specialized in import-export, and it keeps a bunch of people trapped inside where I can torture them. With my terrible cooking, I mean. Took 2000 years, but I guess it's still some form of progress.